The ship Iron Fang drifted in the cold dark between stars, its black hull blending with the void. Inside, the crew gathered in the mess hall, the air thick with the smell of recycled coffee and engine oil. Captain Rourke sat at the head of the table, hard-faced man with eyes like steel shavings. He had seen more battles than most mercenaries could imagine, and he wore those years like a second skin. His crew knew the look he had, now jaw tight. Fingers drumming against the table, it meant something big was coming. No one spoke until the door hissed open, and Mace, the ship's comms officer, stepped in holding a small black data tablet. "We've got an incoming offer," he said, sliding it across the table to the captain. Rourke didn't move right away. Offers came in every week: protection runs, sabotage jobs, cargo raids. Most were garbage. But the way Mace's voice had, Drop told everyone this was different. The captain finally picked up the tablet and pressed play. A grainy holla flickered to life above the table. A man's voice, calm and smooth, filled the room. "Captain Rourke, I have a task that requires discretion. There will be no questions, no second guessing. Payment is triple your usual rate. If you succeed, your crew will never need to work again." There was no face on the recording, only a shifting shadow against a dark wall. That alone set everyone on edge. No one hid their face, unless the job was dangerous enough to kill everyone involved. "And what's the target?" Rourke asked, his voice low. The message answered as if it had been expecting the question. "Scientist named Dr. Alira Vance. She is currently under protection on the colony world of Rios Prime. Retrieve her alive, no harm to her. No contact with local authorities." Mace spoke first. "That's it? Snatch and grab?" Then the voice in the recording added two words that made the temperature in the room drop. "Be advised, she is guarded by Deathworlder Special Forces." Silence. Even the hum of the ship seemed to fade for a second. At the far end of the table, Jocks, the weapons specialist, gave a low whistle. "You've got to be kidding." Everyone knew the stories. Deathworlder Special Forces were not just elite, they were something else entirely. Soldiers from a planet so violent and unpredictable that only the strongest humans survived. Harsh gravity, poisonous wildlife, brutal storms. It forged warriors who could outthink machines and outfight alien predators, and worse. Every rumor ended the same way. If you met them on the battlefield, you didn't walk away. Kara, the youngest of the crew, laughed nervously. "Those are just stories to scare rookies. I mean, come on. No one's that dangerous." Jock shook his head. "You ever met a man who could run 40 clicks through acid rain, carrying 80 kilos of gear, and then take out a bunker by himself?" "Once, and he was Deathworlder trained." The captain said nothing, just stared at the tablet. "Triple their normal pay? Enough to disappear forever. Enough to fix the Iron Fang's failing drives, to buy out their contracts, to settle somewhere warm. But Deathworlders." The holla ended with coordinates and a time. "If you accept, meet me there. In 72 hours? If you decline, forget this message." Rourke pushed the tablet away. No one spoke. The only sound was the faint creak of the ship as it shifted in the void. Finally, Mace asked, "So?
How are we taking it?"
The captain rubbed the scar along his jaw. A habit when he was thinking hard. "We've taken bad jobs before. We've gone up against corporate armies, pirates, even Dominion shock troops. We survived." Jocks leaned forward. "This is different. Deathworlders don't just kill you, they make sure no one even knows how you died." Kara rolled her eyes. "Maybe they're just people with a fancy name. You think they're ghosts or something?" Rourke's gaze cut to her, sharp and cold. "I saw a Deathworlder once. Just one. On Varn Station 10 years ago. A riot broke out in the cargo bays. 500 people tearing each other apart. He walked through like it was nothing. Didn't even slow down. Every man who raised a hand to him dropped in under a second. I never saw his face. I just knew I didn't want to." The words hung there. Even Kara didn't speak after that. Rourke finally stood. "We'll vote. But know this, Sif. We take this job. We go in knowing the odds are stacked. One wrong move, and we're done." One by one, hands went up. Survival had made them cautious. but greed had made them reckless. By the time the last hand was raised, the decision was made. Set course for Rio's Prime, the captain said. The ship's engines rumbled to life. Over the next 3 days, the crew prepped for the mission. Weapons were cleaned. Ammo counted twice. Jocks checked and rechecked the railguns and pulse rifles. Kara ran drone diagnostics. Mace plotted 3 possible approach vectors to the colony. Still, the unease grew. Rio's Prime was a lush, dangerous world on the edge of civilized space. Its jungles hid predators that could rip a man in half. That was without adding Deathworlders. To the equation, on the last night before arrival, the crew gathered in the mess hall again. This time, the lights were dim, the mood heavier. Jocks told a story about a mercenary crew he'd known hired to raid a mining camp on a Deathworlder frontier. They went in 30 strong, none came back. No bodies were found, only their weapons, neatly stacked in a pile. Maybe it's just intimidation, Kara said, but her voice was quieter now. Mace shook his head. If it's intimidation, it works. When the Iron Fang dropped out of hyperspace, Rio's Prime filled the viewport blue oceans, emerald continents, swirling silver storms, beautiful from orbit, deadly up close. Rourke stood at the helm. We land at dusk. Less chance of being spotted. Keep comes tight. No chatter unless it's life or death. As the ship entered the atmosphere, turbulence rocked them. Lightning flashed in the distance. The jungle below looked like a living, sea leaves shifting in waves as the wind tore across them. They touched down in a clearing 2 clicks from the coordinates. The air outside shimmered with heat and smelled faintly of metal and damp earth. Strange cries echoed through the Trezelian birds, or something else entirely. The crew moved fast, weapons ready, eyes scanning every shadow. The jungle seemed too close in around them, branches tangling overhead, the ground soft underfoot. Halfway to the target, Jocks froze. Movement, he whispered. Everyone dropped low. Through the leaves, they saw it a figure in matte black armor, standing utterly still. The helmet visor reflected nothing. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then, just as suddenly, the figure was gone. Drone? Kara whispered. No, Rourke said. His voice was tight. That was a person. They kept moving, but the sense of being watched grew stronger. The jungle seemed to hold its breath. Shadows shifted just beyond vision. By the time they reached the edge of the colony's outer fence, every nerve was on fire. Mace hacked the gate, the lock clicking open, as they slipped inside. A low voice crackled over Rourke's come one that wasn't on their private channel. You shouldn't have come here, Captain. The voice was calm, steady. Rourke stopped, cold, scanning the shadows. Who is this? Leave now, and maybe you'll make it back to your ship. The line went dead. They all looked to the captain. His face was pale, but his voice was steady. Move, he said, somewhere deep in the jungle behind them. A single branch snapped, and the hunt began. The mess hall of the Iron Fang felt smaller that night, as if the walls themselves were leaning in to listen. Outside the viewport, Rio's Prime's jungle swayed in the dark, the massive leaves glistening under the silver glow of twin moons. Somewhere in that tangle of green, shadows moved, silent, patient, watching. The crew sat around the long steel table, but no one touched the food in front of them. The encounter earlier still hung heavy over them, the black-armored figure. The voice on the coms. It wasn't just the words. It was the way they had been said. Calm. Certain. Like someone who already knew how this story would end. Jax leaned back in his chair, boots on the table, and began sharpening the edge of his combat knife with slow, deliberate strokes. Anyone still think those Deathworlder stories are made up? He asked, not looking at anyone in particular. Kara shifted uncomfortably. Could have been a local soldier, she muttered. Someone trying to scare us off. Jax's eyes flicked up cold. Locals don't move like that, and they sure as hell don't vanish into thin air. Mace, sitting across from him, sipped his coffee, though his hand trembled slightly. I've heard things, he said. You all have. But the details vary. What I saw today wasn't a story. It was something else, something worse. Rourke sat at the head of the table, silent, watching his crew argue. He let them talk. Sometimes hearing the fear in their own voices made people realize the truth faster than any lecture could. The oldest crew member, Talvik their mechanic, spoke up. His voice was gravel, worn down by years of engine rooms and smoke. You kids don't know half the truth. I worked a job near Vorik Outpost a decade back. Mining colony, nothing special. They had trouble with pirates, so they hired a security unit. I never saw the whole squad, just one of them. Deathworlder. 6 hours after they landed, the pirates were gone. Not killed in battle, gone. Their ships were still there, their gear, even their boots lined up. Neat as you please. Men, not a trace. Kara's eyebrows knit together. Maybe they evacuated. Tovik shook his head slowly. No escape pods fired. No cum traffic. What? No distress calls. It was like they'd been erased from the galaxy. Silence filled the room again. Didn't speak. Mace leaned forward. I met a guy once on Caledon Station. Said his cousin was in a mercenary unit contracted against Deathworlders. Whole unit wiped out in less than a day. The cousin survived, barely. Lost his arm, his eye, and a good chunk of his sanity. Said it wasn't the weapons that scared him, it was how they moved. Like they were reading your mind. Like they knew what you were going to do before you even thought it. Predictive combat, Jocks muttered. Some elite units train for it, but Deathworlders, they don't train for it, they live it. Whole planet's a battlefield. Rourke finally spoke, his voice low. The only thing you need to know about Deathworlders is that they don't play by our rules. You can bribe a pirate, you can scare a soldier, you can trick a bounty hunter. But you can't break a Deathworlder. Not with fear, not with pain, not even with death. Kara looked from face to face, her earlier skepticism fading into something else, something she didn't want to name. How do we? She trailed off, the question unfinished. Rourke's gaze met hers. You don't. You survive long enough to finish your job, and you get out. That's the only way. The rain outside began to fall harder, pounding against the hull like distant artillery fire. Tovik rose from his seat. If you're smart, Captain, you'll call this whole thing off. No payout's worth it. Rourke didn't answer right away, just stared at the jungle through the viewport. Something was out there, watching. He could feel it in his bones. Too late for that, he said finally. They know we're here. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. The rest of the night was restless. Some tried to sleep. The others stayed awake, cleaning their weapons or pacing the narrow corridors. The jungle noises never stopped: chirps, screeches, and an occasional deep, resonant growl that seemed too large to belong to any bird. Just before dawn, Mace was in the cockpit, scanning for any unusual signals. He froze when his console pinged 3 faint, intermittent blips, moving slowly around the ship in a wide circle. Too far for visual contact, but close enough to be deliberate. He called Rourke over. The captain stared at the display for a long moment before saying, "They're probing us. Testing our reaction time." Mace's throat went dry. "And if we react," Rourke's eyes didn't leave the scanner, "then they know exactly how fast they need to be to kill us." By the time the sun bled through the canopy, the blips were gone. But no one felt any safer. At breakfast, no one touched the food again. Tovik muttered something about the quiet being worse than a firefight. Kara tried to laugh, but it came out wrong. That was when Jock slammed his mug down hard enough to crack the handle. Y'all don't get it. We're not up against soldiers. We're up against predators? And we're already in their hunting ground. The words sat heavy over the table. Outside, the jungle swayed in the wind. Somewhere beyond sight, in the shadows, under the leaves. Something shifted, something waiting, and every one of them knew it was only a matter of time before it came for them. The jungle of Rayos Prime was not a place built for comfort. In daylight, the air was thick and heavy, pressing down like a wet blanket. Every step sank into soft, spongy earth. The heat wrapped around the crew of the Iron Fang as they moved in a staggered formation, weapons ready, eyes scanning every shadow. The sun was high, but its light barely touched the ground. Massive leaves overhead turned the world into shifting shades of green and gold. Strange shapes darted between the branches, some small, some much larger. The noises never stopped. Shrill bird calls, the distant rumble of something moving through, the undergrowth, and an occasional clicking sound that no one could identify. Captain Rourke led the way, checking his wrist scanner every few seconds. Behind him, Jocks carried the heavy railgun like it weighed nothing. Mace kept one eye on his motion tracker, the other sweeping the tree line. Kara brought up the rear, drone controller in hand, sending a small quadritor ahead to scout. "Anything?" Rourke asked without looking back. "Just more jungle," Kara replied, though her voice was tight. "No heat signatures, no movement beyond the usual animals." They pressed on, heading toward the colony's outer perimeter. The job seemed simple on paper. Slip inside, grab Dr. Vance, get out. But the black-armored figure they'd glimpsed the night before had shifted the air around them. Now, every leaf looked like a hiding place. Every shadow was a possible threat. An hour in, the jungle grew quieter, too quiet. The constant bird calls stopped, the clicking faded. Only the sound of their own boots on the soft earth remained. "Why'd it get so still?" Kara whispered. Jax grunted. "Predators." Rourke held up a fist and the crew froze. His wrist scanner was clean, no movement, but his instincts screamed otherwise. Then, from the left, something flickered between the trees. Just a blur of black and silver. Contact. Jocks began. The figure was gone before he could finish. Kara's drone camera swung toward the movement. On her screen, a dark silhouette stood between two massive roots. The armor was smooth, matte black, the helmet faceless. The figure didn't move, didn't even raise a weapon, just stood there watching. Then the feed glitched. Static filled the display for half a second, and when the image cleared, the figure was gone. "Where did it?" Kara started, but Rourke cut her off. "Eyes up. They're testing us." Mace's tracker gave a sharp blip. 2 more, different vectors. Closing. The crew shifted into a defensive circle. The jungle around them felt alive now, every vine and shadow carrying weight. Jocks swung his railgun toward, the noise of leaves brushing together, but it was only a bird. It's flapping away. Then Rourke saw it. A figure stepped into view about 30 meters ahead, moving without sound. Same black armor, same faceless visor. The way it stood was relaxed, almost casual, like this was nothing but a stroll. Another appeared to their right. "Hold fire," Rourke ordered. His voice was low, tight. The 2 Deathworlders didn't advance. They didn't need to. Their presence alone shifted the balance. The mercenaries were no longer moving toward the colony. They were prey caught between 2 hunters. Without a sound, the Deathworlder ahead of them raised one hand and pointed toward the jungle behind the Iron Fang crew. Rourke's gut twisted. He knew exactly what that gesture meant. The trap was already set, before anyone could speak. Something heavy crashed through the undergrowth behind them. The mercenaries spun, weapons up, only to find nothing there. When they turned back, the Deathworlders were gone. No sound of retreat, no breaking branches, no disturbed earth. It was as if they'd never been there at all. Mace cursed under his breath. This isn't a fight. This is a game to them. Rourke didn't answer. His mind was already racing. They'd just been measured, tested like Anne. Opponent in a sparring ring, and the Deathworlders had learned exactly how the Iron Fang crew would react under pressure. The silence returned. Heavier this time. The kind of quiet that pressed against your ears, somewhere ahead. It's just beyond sight. A real hunt was beginning. The jungle swallowed them whole. The Iron Fang crew moved faster now, cutting through thick ferns and tangled roots, the undergrowth, clawing at their gear. The colony perimeter lay somewhere ahead, but the path twisted and shifted like it didn't want to be found. No one spoke. The earlier encounter still burned in their minds, 2 Deathworlders appearing out of nowhere, vanishing just as quickly. Rourke kept glancing at the tree line, scanning for movement. Mace's tracker was in his hand, the screen flashing occasional blips that appeared and disappeared so fast they could have been ghosts. "They're still out there," Mace muttered, his voice low. "They never left," Rourke replied. Jocks. Lugging the railgun kept his eyes moving, finger resting lightly on the trigger. Kara followed close behind, her drone flying overhead. She kept flicking her gaze between the jungle and her feed, sweat dripping down her temple. "Something's jamming my signal," she said. "Drone's losing range. Pull it back." Rourke ordered. "We stick together." They pushed forward another 100 meters before the first sign came. A thin cable, nearly invisible, stretched across the ground at ankle height. Tovik, moving in the rear, spotted it just in time. He knelt and brushed aside a layer of leaves, revealing a crude but effective snare, trap pressure activated, designed to whip a sharpened stake upward. Kara swallowed. "They're setting traps? For us?" "No," Rourke said quietly. "These were already here. They know this jungle better than we do." They stepped over the cable and kept moving, but the traps became more frequent nets hidden in the canopy. Shallow pits masked by moss, tripwires that didn't lead to explosives, but to clusters of sharp metal spikes. Each one felt less like a defensive measure and more like a message. "We control this ground." The first disappearance happened less than an hour later. They were crossing a narrow ridge with a steep drop on either side when a sharp thwip cracked through the air. Tovik at the back grunted once, then was gone. K-A-R-K. Kara spun, gun up, but there was nothing behind them, just the empty ridge, the faint rustle of leaves below. "Tovik," Jocks bellowed, starting toward the edge. Rourke grabbed his shoulder. "Don't. That's what they want."
Max's eyes burned.
"Can't just—" "He's gone," Rourke said flatly. "If he's alive, we'll never find him in that jungle. If he's dead, we'll join him if we follow." The words cut through the moment like a knife. Jocks stayed still, breathing hard, the muscles in his jaw twitching. They moved on faster now, each step heavier with the knowledge that one wrong move could erase them from the world as easily as Tovik II. Disappearance was worse. They'd stopped to catch their breath in a narrow clearing when Kara's drone feed flickered and died. She cursed and pulled the controller closer, then froze. Her reflection in the dark screen wasn't alone. A black armored figure stood directly behind her. Before she could scream, a gloved hand clamped over her mouth. She was yanked backward, into the shadows, her boots dragging furrows in the dirt. Jocks and Mace spun, weapons up, firing bursts into the trees. But the Deathworlder and Kara were already gone. Jocks shouted her name, firing wildly into the undergrowth until Rourke slammed into him, knocking the barrel down. "You'll hit her." Jocks's voice cracked. "We're down too? They're taking us apart." Rourke's eyes swept the tree line, every nerve screaming. "That's the point. They want us scared. They want us sloppy." Mace's tracker pinged again, this time with 3 distinct blips circling them. One darted forward, then back, then forward again. "They're hurting us," he said,
Ouch.
his voice tight. The ridge gave way to denser jungle, the air thicker, heavier. The path narrowed until they had no choice but to move in single file. Every sound seemed magnified. The creak of their gear, the crunch of their boots, the pounding of their hearts. Then the coms crackled. "Captain Rourke." The voice was the same as before, calm, certain. "You are in my territory. You have lost too. You will lose more." Rourke stopped dead. "We're not here for you." "That's where you're wrong," the voice replied. "You set foot here. That makes you mine." The line went dead. Mace swore under his breath. "This isn't a mission anymore. This is survival." Jocks's grip on the railgun tightened until his knuckles turned white. "They want to fight, we give them one. But they don't want to fight," Rourke said. "They want the kill. And they're patient." As if to prove his point, a sudden burst of gunfire erupted from the right flank short. Controlled bursts, the sound of expert hands. Leaves shredded in the air. The mercenaries dove for cover, returning fire blindly. When the jungle fell silent, again, there was no body, no sign of an enemy. Just the lingering echo of shots that had come far too close. "They're letting us know they could have hit us," Rourke said, "and they didn't." "Why?" Jocks demanded. The captain's voice was grim. "Because the hunt isn't over." By nightfall, the crew was down to 3. Mace swore he'd seen a shadow following them just out of range. Jox moved like a caged animal, eyes darting, railgun twitching at every noise. Rourke said nothing, but his jaw was set like stone. When darkness finally took the jungle, they made camp in a small clearing, though no one expected to sleep. The air was thick, the night sounds strange. Somewhere out there, Deathworlders waited. Watching, the 3 remaining mercenaries sat back to back, weapons ready, and in the darkness beyond the firelight, faint, deliberate footsteps circled them. The hunt had only just begun. Kara woke to the sound of breathing. It was slow, steady, and far too close. For a second, she thought it might be one of her crewmates. Then, she remembered her crewmates weren't here. She wasn't in the clearing. She wasn't anywhere near Rourke or Jox or Mace. Her eyes snapped open. Darkness pressed in from all sides. The air was damp, carrying the smell of wet earth and something faintly metallic blood. Maybe she tried to move, but her wrists were bound behind her back with something rough, almost like braided vine. Her ankles were tied the same way. The breathing stopped. Her heartbeat filled her ears. She turned her head slowly, eyes searching the dark. A faint shift of movement came from the corner of the spaca. Shadow peeling away from the wall. It stepped forward just enough for the moonlight to catch the edge of black armor. The faceless visor reflected nothing. The Deathworlder stood there, silent, not moving closer. Kara's throat went dry. What do you want?" she whispered. No answer. She tried again, voice shaking. "If you're going to kill me..." Just the Deathworlder stepped forward in one smooth motion and cut her bonds with a short, curved blade. The rope fell away without a sound. Kara blinked. Why? Still no answer. The soldier turned and walked toward the mouth of the cave, because now she could see it was a cave. Narrow and jagged, opening into thick jungle. He stopped just at the entrance and glanced back at her. Then, without a word, he vanished into the trees. Kara sat frozen for a long moment, her mind racing. Why free her? Why not kill her? Was this some kind of game? She pushed herself to her feet, legs aching from being bound. The jungle outside was still dark, the sounds of night predators echoing through it. She stepped out slowly, scanning the shadows. The air felt heavier out here, as if the whole forest was leaning in to listen. She turned in a slow, circled no, sign of the Deathworlder. Then a guttural roar split the air. It came from somewhere to her right, low and deep, like the sound of a landslide. The undergrowth ahead shifted violently, something huge moving fast. Kara backed up instinctively, but it was too late. The thing burst from the tree's four-legged, scaled with a head like a serrated blade. Its eyes locked on her. She scrambled for her sidearm. Gone. She'd lost it when they'd taken her. Her heart slammed in her chest as the creature's massive claws dug into the earth. Then the Deathworlder came out of nowhere. One moment Kara was staring down her death. The next, the black-armored figure had slammed into the beast's side. The impact was so hard it knocked the predator off its feet. The Deathworlder moved like liquid steel, dodging claws, stabbing deep into the thing's neck with that same curved blade. The predator thrashed once, twice, then went still. The Deathworlder wiped the blade clean on the creature's hide and turned to face her. Kara's voice was shaking. "Why are you helping me?" The soldier tilted his head slightly, like he was considering whether to answer. Finally he spoke, his voice low, rough, and human. "'Cause you don't know what you're walking into." "What does that mean?" she asked, but he had already turned away. He started walking into the jungle, slow enough for her to follow. She hesitated for only a moment before moving after him. They traveled in silence. The Deathworlder moved without disturbing a single branch, his steps so quiet she could barely hear them. He led her through a twisting maze of game trails, across shallow streams, under fallen trees. She tried to keep track of their path, but lost all sense of direction. Eventually, they reached a ridge overlooking the colony perimeter. From here, Kara could see lights flickering in the distance, too many, moving too fast. Something was happening inside the colony walls. The Deathworlder crouched low, scanning the scene below. "Your captain thinks he's hunting," he said quietly. "He's wrong." You're all pawns in someone else's game. Kara frowned. Whose game? The visor turned toward her, the black surface giving away nothing. The ones who sent you here. It's the ones who want this war to start. Before she could ask more, a burst of gunfire echoed from deep in the jungle behind them, the direction she'd come from. Her stomach dropped. That had to be Rourke's team. The Deathworlder rose to his full height. Friends alive? You'll follow me. If you want to die, you'll go back on your own. Kara's heart pounded. She looked toward the colony, then back toward the sound of distant gunfire. In the end, she followed him, and as they disappeared into the shadows, she couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just stepped into a much bigger war than she'd ever imagined. The jungle was almost silent now. Kara followed the Deathworlder through the darkness, her boots sinking into damp soil. The air was thick, with the smell of rain and smoke. Somewhere far behind them, the sound of gunfire had faded into uneasy stillness. They stopped in a clearing lit only by pale moonlight breaking through the canopy. The Deathworlder turned to face her. You want answers? He said. Kara nodded. You've been saving my life since you found me. I need to know why. Who are you? What are you really doing here? For a long moment, he didn't speak. He reached up and pressed something on the side of his helmet. The visor hissed and slid upward, revealing a human face guard, pale, with eyes so sharp they seemed to cut straight through her. My name is Commander Rhys Calder, he said. Deathworlder Special Forces, Unit Black Talon. Kara frowned. Deathworlder. So the rumors are true? More than true, he said. But you've been told lies about us. You think we're just killers? That's what they want you to think. Who's they? She asked. Rhys's gaze drifted toward the colony lights in the distance. The ones pulling the strings? The Syndicate. They want war because war makes them rich. They fund mercenaries, arm colonies, stir up fear, and then send people like your captain to stabilize the situation. But they don't want peace. They want chaos they can control. Kara felt a cold weight settle in her chest. So why are you here? His jaw tightened. Because Deathworlders don't work for them. They fight for the worlds they can't fight. For themselves. And when the Syndicate found out we were here, they sent mercenaries to keep us busy or to kill us. She stared at him. Then why rescue me? I'm part of the crew they're manipulating. Rhys shook his head. You're not like them. I've seen the way you look at what's happening. You're asking questions. It makes you dangerous to them. He stepped closer, his voice dropping lower, and there's more. There. Not just planning to destroy this colony, they're planning to make it look like you and your captain did it. You'll be the spark that lights the whole war. Kara felt her stomach twist. That's insane, is it? Rhys asked.
Think about it.
A small mercenary team wipes out a civilian colony. Both sides scream for revenge. The Syndicate sells weapons to both. The war spreads. Her mind reeled. It made too much sense. Rhys turned away, scanning the tree line. We don't have much time. If we're going to stop them, we need proof, and I know where to get it. Kara hesitated. And if we fail? He met her eyes, cold and certain. Then this world burns, and so does yours. A distant explosion lit the night sky to the east. The ground trembled under their feet. Rhys's expression hardened. They've started. He motioned for her to follow, and together they vanished into the jungle against two shadows racing toward the truth that could stop a war, or bury them both. The night sky burned. Flames climbed into the clouds, painting the jungle in flickering orange light. The air shook with the deep rolling thunder of artillery. Somewhere ahead, beyond the tree line, the colony was being torn apart. Kara ran hard, keeping close to Rhys. Every time she stumbled over a root or slipped on the wet ground, his hand was there to pull her back up. They moved like hunted animals, fast, low, silent until the roar of battle drowned out even their breathing. They stopped at the edge of a ridge overlooking the colony. Kara's eyes widened. It wasn't a battle, it was an execution. Mercenaries in Syndicate-marked armor were sweeping through the streets, setting buildings on fire, cutting down anyone who tried to run. And among the chaos, she spotted something. Where's her Captain Rourke? shouting orders to her own crew to hold position and secure the perimeter. They weren't helping the colonists. They were making sure no one escaped. Kara's chest tightened. They're in on it. Reese's voice was grim. Not all of them. Some don't know. But Rourke, he's Syndicate property. It's been for years. Before she could reply, flash of movement caught her I-3 Syndicate gunships sweeping in low over the colony, heading for the central tower. Reese tensed. That's where they keep the cum logs, he said. Proof of everything. They destroy that tower. No one will ever know who really started this. Kara swallowed. So we get in there first, gave a short nod, and we don't walk out until it's done. They slid down the ridge, the heat and smoke growing. Thicker with every step, Reese moved like a phantom, cutting down mercenaries with swift, silent strikes, his curved blade flashing in the firelight. Kara stayed close, scavenging a rifle from a fallen soldier. They fought their way into the tower, smoke curling up the stairwells. Alarms wailed, drowning in the sound of gunfire outside. On the top floor, they found a room lined with glowing data cores. Reese strode to the central terminal, plugging in a small black device, downloading everything. This will prove the Syndicate planned the whole thing. Kara kept watch at the door, her heart hammering. How long? 2 minutes. 2 minutes felt like forever. The tower shook as something exploded outside. Then boots pounded up the stairs. Kara fired, dropping the first merc through the doorway. But more kept coming. Reese yanked the device free. Got it. They ran, the sound of boots and shouts chasing them down the stairwell. At the ground floor, they burst into the open and straight into Captain Rourke. He stood with a squad of armed mercenaries, a smirk on his face. Well, looks like our little runaway brought a friend. Kara raised her rifle. They're using us, Rourke. You're letting them start a war. Rourke chuckled. War is good business. And you're about to disappear in it. Before? He could give the order. Reese moved. 1 second he was standing still. The next, he was in motion, a blur of black armor. The fight was brutal, fast, and final. When it was over, Rourke was on the ground, his mercenaries scattering into the chaos. Reese grabbed Kara's arm. We're not done yet. The whole galaxy needs to see this. They sprinted to the colony's cum array, climbing the skeletal structure under enemy fire. At the top, Reese connected the device and triggered the broadcast. Across dozens of star systems, the truth spilled out: video, audio, orders signed by Syndicate officials. The entire operation laid bare. Below them, the mercenaries began to retreat. Without Syndicate protection, they were just criminals with guns. Kara stood in the wind, watching the fires die slowly in the distance. She turned to Reese. What happens now? He stared out over the ruined colony, his visor reflecting the fading flames. Now they know Deathworlders are watching, and they should be afraid. They climbed down in silence. The war hadn't ended tonight, but it had just changed. And for the first time, Kara believed they might actually win.